Marcus Chen walked through the thick forest, checking his traps like he did every morning. The sun was just coming up on Kepler 442c, painting the alien trees in shades of gold and green. He had been living alone in the wilderness for 6 months now, studying the local animals and plants while teaching other colonists how to survive on this new world. The first 3 traps were empty. The fourth had caught a small hopper, one of the rabbit-like creatures that lived in the forest. Marcus reset the trap and continued walking. His boots made soft sounds on the mossy ground as he moved toward his last snare. When he reached the final trap, Marcus stopped and stared. Something was caught in his rope snare, but it was not a hopper. It was something he had never seen before. A girl was tangled in the rope, but she was not human. Her skin was a beautiful blue-green color that seemed to shimmer in the morning light. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with delicate features and large violet eyes that looked up at him with pure terror. Her hair was silver and moved like water around her shoulders. She wore simple clothes made of some kind of woven material. The alien girl was trembling. She spoke in a language that sounded like music, but Marcus could hear the fear in her voice. She struggled against the rope around her ankle, which had tightened when she tried to run. Marcus held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Easy," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl did not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. She stopped struggling but continued to watch him with wide, frightened eyes. Her breathing was quick and shallow. Marcus slowly reached for his field knife. The girl saw the blade and cried out, covering her face with her hands. She spoke rapidly in her musical language, and Marcus thought he heard pleading in her voice. No, Marcus said, kneeling down slowly. "I'm just going to cut the rope, see?" He pointed to the snare around her ankle, then to his knife. Very carefully, he slid the blade under the rope and began to cut. The girl watched him with confusion. This was clearly not what she had expected. When the rope fell away, the girl rubbed her ankle where the rope had been. Marcus could see small cuts and bruises on her blue-green skin. He reached for his first aid kit, but the girl scrambled backward. "It's okay," Marcus said, opening the kit and showing her the bandages and healing gel. "For your cuts." He pointed to her injured ankle, then to the medical supplies. Slowly, understanding seemed to come into her violet eyes. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, then extended her leg toward him. Marcus cleaned the cuts gently and applied healing gel. The girl winced but did not pull away. When he finished, she touched the bandage with wonder, then looked up at him with less fear than before. Marcus sat back on his heels and pointed to himself. "Marcus," he said. The girl tilted her head, clearly not understanding. Marcus tried again, tapping his chest. "Marcus, my name is Marcus." This time the girl seemed to get it. She pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Zixara. Her pronunciation was different from human sounds, but Marcus tried to repeat it. "Zixara?" he said. She nodded and smiled for the first time. Her smile was beautiful, showing small white teeth. She said something else that Marcus did not understand, but her tone was less frightened now. Marcus pulled out his water bottle and offered it to her. Zixara looked at it carefully, then sniffed it. When she realized it was water, she drank gratefully. She had probably been lost for some time. From his pack, Marcus took out some of his food. He had energy bars made from plants and some dried fruit. He offered these to Zixara, but she looked confused. She examined the food carefully, smelling it and looking at Marcus with questions in her eyes. Marcus realized she might not know what it was. He took a small bite of the energy bar and chewed, showing her it was safe to eat. Zixara watched him carefully, then took a tiny bite. Her eyes widened with surprise. She had probably never tasted human food before. As Zixara ate, Marcus studied her. She was clearly intelligent. Her clothes were well made, and she wore what looked like jewelry made from crystals. She was not some primitive creature. She came from a civilization, but where? Marcus had been on this planet for 3 years, and the human colony had never encountered any signs of intelligent life. Where had she come from? Marcus tried to ask her this using gestures. He pointed to her, then around at the forest, making questioning sounds. Zixara seemed to understand what he was asking. She pointed down at the ground and said something in her musical language. Underground, Marcus thought. Did she live underground? Zixara seemed to be trying to tell him something important. She spoke rapidly, pointing at Marcus and making gestures that looked fearful. She pointed to her mouth, then to Marcus, then made biting motions. Her eyes were wide with worry. Marcus suddenly understood. She thought he was going to eat her. The realization shocked him. This beautiful, intelligent being thought humans were monsters who ate other thinking creatures. No wonder she had been so terrified. Marcus shook his head firmly. "No," he said. "No, no, no." He pointed to himself, then made an X with his hands. He pointed to the plant-based food in his pack, then to himself, showing that he only ate plants. Zixara looked confused. She pointed to the hopper meat Marcus had caught earlier, then looked at him questioningly. Marcus realized this would be hard to explain. He took out his tablet and showed her pictures of earth animals, cows, pigs, chickens. Then he showed her pictures of vegetables and fruits. He pointed to the vegetables and himself, showing that this was what he ate. Then he pointed to the animal pictures and shook his head. Zixara studied the tablet with amazement. She had never seen such technology. She touched the screen carefully and Marcus showed her how it worked. When she understood that the pictures moved and changed, she gasped with wonder. Using the tablet, Marcus tried to show her more about humans. He showed her pictures of human cities, human families, human children playing. Zixara looked at these images with growing amazement. These were not the monsters from whatever stories her people told. As the morning went on, Marcus and Zixara continued trying to communicate. She was very smart and learned some English words quickly. Marcus tried to learn her language too, though it was much harder for his human mouth to make the right sounds. When Marcus checked his communication equipment to contact the human colony, he found a problem. The device was broken. A recent storm had damaged something inside, and he could not fix it here. He would have to return to his cabin to make repairs. Marcus gestured for Zixara to come with him. She looked uncertain, but when he pointed to her injured ankle and then to his cabin, she seemed to understand that he was offering to help her. As they walked together through the forest, Marcus wondered what this meeting would mean. He had just made first contact with an alien species. This was the most important thing that had ever happened on Kepler 442c. But more than that, he had made a friend. Despite the fear and misunderstanding, despite the language barrier, he could see that Zixara was kind and intelligent. Her people might think humans were monsters, but maybe that could change. Maybe this accidental meeting would change everything. Marcus led Zixara back to his cabin, walking slowly so she could keep up on her injured ankle. The small wooden building sat in a clearing beside a stream, surrounded by the tools and equipment Marcus used for his research. Solar panels on the roof powered his basic electronics. Zixara stopped at the edge of the clearing, staring at the cabin with wide eyes. She had probably never seen a human structure before. Everything about it must have seemed strange to her. "It's okay," Marcus said gently. "This is my home." He showed her inside the one-room cabin. It was simple but comfortable, with a bed, a small kitchen area, a desk covered with research notes, and shelves full of books and equipment. Zixara looked around with amazement, touching things carefully as if they might break. Marcus pointed to a chair and gestured for her to sit. She settled into it awkwardly, clearly not used to human furniture. While she rested, Marcus prepared some tea made from local plants. The warm drink would help her feel better. When he offered her the cup, Zixara smelled it cautiously before taking a sip. Her eyes lit up with pleasure. Whatever her people drank, they probably enjoyed warm beverages too. Marcus set up his tablet on the desk between them. Over the next few hours, he worked on building a basic translation program. His tablet had language learning software that could analyze patterns in speech. It was not perfect, but it was better than just using gestures. As the program learned more of Zixara's language, communication became easier. Her name, he learned, was pronounced Zixara, but she told him humans could call her Zara if that was easier. She spoke the nickname carefully, proud that she was learning English. Zara told him about her people, the Velnari. They lived in vast underground cities carved from rock and crystal. The caves were beautiful, she said, with glowing crystals that provided light and underground rivers that provided water and transportation. "Why do your people live underground?" Marcus asked, typing the question into the tablet so it could translate. Zara's expression became sad. Through the tablet and some gestures, she explained that her people were refugees. Long ago, they had lived on a planet with a beautiful surface world. But monsters had come from the stars, pale creatures that destroyed everything they touched. The Velnari had escaped in their ships and found this world, but they were too afraid to live on the surface again. "The pale devourers," Zara said, using a mixture of English and her own language. They eat everything. They eat worlds. They eat people, Marcus felt a chill. Could these pale devourers be the same hostile aliens that had attacked human colonies and other star systems? He had heard reports of such attacks, but they had seemed far away and unreal. Are these pale devourers still out there? He asked. Zara nodded, fear clear in her violet eyes. Always looking. Always hunting. That is why we hide. She explained that she was on her first journey to the surface world. It was a tradition among her people. Young Velnari had to spend 3 days alone on the surface to prove they were adults. Most stayed close to the hidden cave entrances, but Zara had been curious. She had wandered too far and gotten lost. I wanted to see the sky, she said. I wanted to see the stars without stone above them. Marcus understood. Living underground her whole life, she must have dreamed of open spaces and endless skies. Her curiosity had led her into his trap, but it had also led to this historic meeting between their peoples. Over the following days, as Marcus worked to repair his communication equipment, he and Zara shared more about their cultures. She was amazed to learn that humans chose to live on the surface of worlds, building cities under the open sky. She was even more amazed to learn that many humans, like Marcus, chose not to eat meat from intelligent animals. Your people do not devour others? She asked. Some humans eat animals, Marcus explained carefully, but never people, never anyone who can think and talk like us. Most humans think that would be very wrong. This was clearly a new idea for Zara. Her people had been told that all surface dwellers were predators who would eat anything they caught. Learning that humans had moral rules about what they could and could not eat changed how she saw them completely. In return, Zara taught Marcus about Velnari culture. They were artists and builders, she explained. They carved beautiful cities from living rock and grew crystals that could store energy and light. They had technology too, but it was different from human technology. Where humans used metal and electricity, the Velnari used crystals and what Marcus could only think of as bioengineering. Could you show me? Marcus asked. Could you show me the underground cities? Zara looked uncertain. My people would be very afraid, she said. They think all surface people are enemies. Even after you tell them about me? Marcus asked. They might not believe me, Zara admitted. They have been afraid for so long. Marcus understood. Fear that had lasted for generations would not disappear just because one young Velnari had met one friendly human. It would take time and patience to build trust between their peoples. On the third day, Marcus finally got his communication equipment working again. But when he tried to contact the human colony, something was wrong. The usual radio chatter was missing. Instead, he heard only emergency broadcasts. All colonists report to emergency shelters, the message said. Unknown ships detected entering atmosphere. This is not a drill. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. He looked at Zara, who was watching his face with growing alarm. What is wrong? She asked. Marcus turned up the volume on the radio. More messages came through, filled with panic and confusion. Ships had appeared in orbit around Kepler 442c. They were not human ships. Pale and strange, one report said. Like nothing we've ever seen. Zara gasped, her face going white. The pale devourers, she whispered. They found us. Marcus grabbed his emergency pack and started filling it with supplies. We have to warn your people, he said. If these are the same aliens that destroyed your homeworld, your people know how to fight them. Zara nodded, her fear replaced by determination. Yes, we must go underground quickly. The Velnari must know the devourers have come. As they prepared to leave the cabin, Marcus realized that everything had changed in an instant. What had started as first contact between two species had become something much more urgent. Now they were potential allies against a common enemy. Outside, the sky was beginning to darken with clouds that did not look natural. Marcus had studied enough xenobiology to recognize signs of atmospheric manipulation. Whatever ships were up there, they were already starting to change the planet's environment. How far to your people? Marcus asked as they started into the forest. 2 days' walk to the nearest entrance, Zara said, but we must be very careful. If the devourers are here, they will have scouts on the ground soon. As they walked quickly through the forest, Marcus thought about what lay ahead. He was about to enter an alien civilization that had good reason to fear and distrust humans. He would have to convince them that humans and Velnari needed to work together to survive what was coming. Behind them, the sky continued to darken. Whatever the pale devourers were, they had found Kepler 442c. The quiet life Marcus had built in the wilderness was over. Now the only question was whether two very different species could overcome their fears and mistrust in time to save both their peoples. Marcus and Zara had been walking for most of the day when the storm hit. It came from nowhere, with winds so strong they could barely stand and rain that felt like ice on their skin. The sky turned black as night, though it was only afternoon. "This is not natural weather," Zara shouted over the howling wind. "The devourers are changing the air." Marcus nodded, pulling his jacket tighter around himself. He had seen the same thing happen on other worlds where hostile aliens had attacked. They would alter the atmosphere to make it better for themselves and worse for everyone else. Lightning flashed overhead, but it was the wrong color, purple instead of white. The thunder that followed it sounded different too, deeper and more threatening than normal thunder. "We need shelter," Marcus called to Zara. "Can you find us a cave?" Zara looked around, trying to get her bearings in the storm. Her silver hair whipped around her face as she pointed toward a rocky hill. "There," she said. "I can smell water and stone. There should be caves." They struggled up the hill, fighting against the wind every step. Marcus could feel the temperature dropping rapidly. Whatever the alien ships were doing to the atmosphere, it was happening fast. The cave Zara found was small but dry. They crawled inside just as the rain turned to hail. The ice balls were bigger than Marcus had ever seen, some as large as his fist. If they had been caught outside, they could have been killed. The cave was barely big enough for both of them. They had to sit close together, sharing body heat as the temperature outside continued to drop. Marcus pulled out his emergency blanket and wrapped it around both of them. "How long will this last?" he asked. Zara closed her eyes, listening to something Marcus could not hear. "The wind speaks of great machines in the sky," she said. "They will not stop until the air is right for the devourers." "Maybe days." Marcus checked his supplies. He had food for 3 days, maybe 4 if they were careful. His water filter could clean the rainwater that was already starting to seep into the cave. They could survive, but it would not be comfortable. Over the next 2 days, as the storm raged outside, Marcus and Zara learned to work together. Zara showed Marcus which mushrooms growing in the cave were safe to eat. She also knew how to find underground streams by listening to the sound of water moving through rock. Marcus shared his survival knowledge too. He showed Zara how to use his portable stove to cook food and how to purify water with his filter tablets. She was fascinated by human technology, asking dozens of questions about how everything worked. "Your people are very clever," she said, as she watched him set up a small radio to listen for news. "You make tools for everything." "Your people are clever too," Marcus replied. "You know things about this planet that we never learned. You can hear water underground and know which plants are safe. That's amazing." As they shared knowledge, Marcus began to understand how different but complementary their peoples were. Humans had advanced technology and could adapt quickly to new situations. The Velnari had deep knowledge of natural systems and could sense things humans could not. On the second night, as they sat close together listening to the storm, Zara told Marcus more about the Pale Devourers. Her people called them the Kethmori, which meant those who unmake in the old language. "They do not create," she explained. "They only destroy and consume. They take worlds and change them until nothing of the original life remains. Then they move on to find new worlds to unmake." "How did your people escape them?" Marcus asked. "We were lucky," Zara said sadly. "We had fast ships and some of us got away before our world died completely. But millions of Velnari did not escape. We are all that is left of our people." Marcus felt a deep sadness for what the Velnari had lost. An entire civilization, destroyed by creatures that seemed to exist only to consume and destroy. No wonder they had hidden underground for so long. "Why do they do it?" he asked. "What do they want?" "I do not think they want anything," Zara said. "I think they are like a disease. They spread and consume because that is what they are. They cannot be reasoned with or bargained with. They can only be fought." On the third morning, the storm began to weaken. Marcus was able to pick up radio signals from the human colony again. What he heard was not good news. The alien ships had landed at several points around the planet. Strange structures were being built, massive towers that pumped chemicals into the air. The human colonists were fighting back, but their weapons did little damage to the alien technology. "We have to reach your people," Marcus told Zara. The humans alone cannot stop this. We need the Velnari knowledge of how to fight the Keth Mori. Zara nodded, but she looked worried. My people are very afraid of surface dwellers, she said. When they see you, they might attack first and ask questions later. Then you have to convince them, Marcus said. You have to make them understand that this time is different. This time, the surface dwellers want to help, not hurt. They left the cave as soon as the weather was safe for travel. The landscape outside looked different now. The grass was turning brown and the trees were losing their leaves even though it was not the right season for that. The alien atmospheric processors were poisoning the planet. As they walked, Marcus noticed that Zara moved differently than before. She was more confident, more purposeful. The scared girl he had found in his trap was gone. In her place was a young woman who knew her people needed her. Tell me about the underground cities, Marcus said as they hiked toward the hidden entrance. What should I expect? They are beautiful, Zara said, her eyes lighting up. Carved from living crystal that gives its own light. Gardens that grow without sun. Rivers that flow through halls bigger than your human buildings, but also soldiers who have trained their whole lives to fight enemies from the surface. Marcus nodded. He was about to enter a world completely unlike anything humans had ever seen, filled with people who had every reason to see him as an enemy, but it was the only chance to save both their peoples. That evening, they reached a hillside that looked completely ordinary to Marcus, but Zara knelt and placed her hand on a specific stone. She spoke words in her own language, and Marcus heard an answer that seemed to come from the rock itself. The entrance will open, Zara explained, but I must warn you. Once we go down, there is no going back until the Council of Depths decides what to do with you. They might see you as a prisoner rather than a guest. Marcus thought about this. He was about to walk into an alien civilization that might capture or kill him, but above them the sky continued to darken with unnatural clouds. Time was running out for everyone on Kepler 442c. I understand, he said. Let's go. The stone slid aside silently, revealing a tunnel that glowed with soft blue light. Zara stepped through first, then turned and held out her hand to Marcus. Trust me, she said. Marcus took her hand and stepped into the tunnel. Behind them, the stone closed seamlessly, cutting off the last light from the surface world. Ahead lay the greatest challenge of his life, convincing an entire civilization to trust their ancient enemies in order to survive. The tunnel curved downward for what felt like miles. The walls were smooth crystal that glowed with soft blue light, making it easy to see but somehow not hurting Marcus's eyes. The air was warm and smelled of growing things, nothing like the cold, poisoned atmosphere above ground. As they walked, Marcus began to hear sounds echoing from deeper in the tunnels. Voices speaking in the musical Velnari language, water flowing somewhere nearby, the distant sound of what might have been machinery, though unlike any human machines he knew. How many of your people live down here? Marcus asked. In this city, maybe 50,000, Zara replied. There are 12 cities connected by the deep tunnels. Maybe 500,000 Velnarian total? Marcus was amazed. 500,000 people living in underground cities that humans had never suspected existed. The Velnari had built an entire hidden civilization, while the human colonists thought they were alone on Kepler 442c. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern that took Marcus's breath away. The space was so huge he could not see the far walls. Crystals grew from the ceiling like chandeliers, filling the cavern with gentle light. Terraced gardens climbed the walls, growing plants that Marcus had never seen before. A river ran through the center of the space, with elegant bridges crossing it at several points. But what amazed Marcus most were the buildings. They were not built from separate stones or metal pieces like human structures. Instead, they seemed to have been grown from the living rock itself, shaped into graceful curves and spirals that looked more like art than architecture. Welcome to Velthis, Zara said. The first deep city. People were moving through the cavern, going about their daily business. When they saw Marcus, they stopped and stared. Most looked curious, but some looked frightened or angry. Word spread quickly through the crowds a surface dweller had come to the deep city. Stay close to me, Zara said quietly. Do not make any sudden movements. They walked across one of the bridges toward what looked like the largest building in the cavern. Guards appeared from nowhere, surrounding them with weapons that looked like spears made of crystal. The guards spoke rapidly in Velnari, and Marcus heard anger in their voices. Zara answered them calmly, showing no fear even though she was clearly outnumbered. She spoke for several minutes, gesturing to Marcus and pointing upward toward the surface. Gradually, the guards' expressions changed from anger to surprise. One of the guards, who seemed to be their leader, stepped forward and examined Marcus closely. He said something to Zara, who nodded and replied. "What did he ask?" Marcus said. "He asked if you really do not eat thinking beings," Zara said. "I told him yes, you only eat plants. He finds this very hard to believe." The guard leader spoke again, this time directly to Marcus. Zara translated. "He says you will be taken to the Council of Depths. They will decide what to do with you. He warns that many of the council believe all surface dwellers should be destroyed before they can harm the Velnari." Marcus nodded. "Tell him I understand. And tell him I come in peace, hoping our peoples can help each other." The guards escorted them deeper into the city. Marcus saw more wonders at every turn. Workshops where Velnari artists shaped crystal with their bare hands. Gardens where impossible plants grew in geometric patterns. Pools where fish swam that seemed to be made of living light. But he also saw signs of a people preparing for war. Weapons were being made in the workshops. Guards practiced fighting techniques in open spaces. Supply caches were being organized and moved. "Your people know the Kethmori are here," Marcus observed. "We felt it when they began changing the sky," Zara said. "The deep crystals sing when the world above is in pain. We have been preparing since the first moment they arrived. They were brought to a circular chamber at the heart of the city. The Council of Depths sat in chairs carved from single pieces of crystal, arranged in a circle around the center of the room. There were 12 council members, and Marcus could see immediately that they were not happy to see him. The eldest counselor, an ancient Velnari with silver skin and eyes like starlight, spoke first. His voice was like deep music, but Marcus could hear the cold anger in it even without understanding the words. Zara stepped forward and began to speak. She talked for a long time, telling the story of how she and Marcus had met, how he had helped her, and what they had learned about each other's peoples. She spoke passionately, her voice rising as she explained why the surface dwellers and the Velnari needed to work together. When she finished, the council members talked among themselves. Marcus could not understand their words, but their body language was clear enough. Some were interested in what Zara had said. Others were skeptical or outright hostile. Finally, a younger counselor stood and spoke directly to Marcus. Zara translated. She asks why the Velnari should trust surface dwellers when surface dwellers brought the Kethmori to our world. Marcus felt a chill. What does she mean? Zara looked confused and translated the question. The counselor's response made her face go pale. She says the Kethmori followed the human ships here. Zara translated. They say humans led the devourers to us. Marcus shook his head firmly. That's not true, he said. The Kethmori attack human colonies too. We've been fighting them for years. But even as he said it, Marcus realized how it might look to the Velnari. They had been hiding successfully for generations. Then humans arrived on Kepler 442c, and suddenly the Kethmori appeared too. The timing was suspicious. The eldest counselor stood and spoke again. His words were formal and final sounding. He says you will be held as a prisoner until the council decides what to do with you, Zara translated. He says the Velnari will fight the Kethmori as we have always fought them, alone. Marcus felt a surge of desperation. Zara, tell them they can't fight alone this time. Tell them the Kethmori are stronger now. They have new weapons, new ships. Tell them humans have weapons that might help. Zara started to translate, but alarms began ringing throughout the city. The crystals in the walls flashed red instead of their usual blue. Council members rushed to communication devices that looked like living crystals. Reports came in from all over the tunnel network. Kethmori forces had found several of the hidden entrances. They were attacking with ground troops and some kind of drilling machines. The outer defenses of 3 cities were under assault. The eldest counselor spoke quickly to the guards, who moved to take Marcus away. But before they could reach him, a new alarm sounded, different from the first, more urgent and frightening. A guard ran into the council chamber and spoke rapidly. The color drained from every Velnari face in the room. What is it? Marcus asked. Zara's voice was barely a whisper. The Kethmori have broken through the defenses of Velsera, the 3rd deep city. They are in the tunnels. They are killing everyone they find. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some counselors called for immediate evacuation. Others demanded that all forces be sent to defend Velsera. The eldest counselor tried to restore order, but panic was spreading through the room. Marcus stepped forward. "Let me help," he said loudly. "Let my people help. The human colony has weapons and soldiers. We can fight the Kethamori together." The eldest counselor looked at him with something that might have been hope. "Your people would fight for us? Even though we are not human?" "The Kethamori will kill us all if we don't stop them," Marcus said. "Human Velnari, it doesn't matter to them. We're all just things to be consumed." Another messenger arrived with worse news. The Kethamori were not just attacking. They were poisoning the underground rivers and releasing some kind of gas into the tunnel systems. They were trying to make the deep cities uninhabitable. The eldest counselor made a decision. He spoke quickly to the other council members, then turned to Marcus. "Tell us how to reach your people," he said in halting English. "Tell us how humans and Velnari can fight together." "Time grows short," Marcus nodded, relief flooding through him. Finally, they would work together. But even as he began explaining how to contact the human colony, he wondered if they were already too late. The real enemy had revealed itself at last, and it was more dangerous than either humans or Velnari had imagined. The war room in Velthis buzzed with activity. Human colonists and Velnari worked side by side around tables covered with maps and communication equipment. It was a sight Marcus had never imagined he would see. Two species that had feared each other now planning their survival together. Colonel Sarah Martinez, the leader of the Human Colonial Defense Force, studied a crystal display that showed the underground tunnel network. "I never knew any of this existed," she said to Elder Thisel, the eldest counselor. "Your cities are incredible, and we never knew surface dwellers could be allies," Thisel replied in careful English. "Perhaps both our peoples have learned from our mistakes." Marcus stood with Zara at a smaller table, coordinating reconnaissance reports. In the 3 days since the alliance had formed, they had become the primary communication link between the two species. Marcus's knowledge of both human and Velnari capabilities made him invaluable for planning joint operations. The situation was desperate. The Kethamori had taken control of 4 underground cities and were systematically poisoning others. Their atmospheric processors on the surface were nearly finished converting the air to something toxic to both humans and Velnari. Worse, more Kethamori ships had arrived in orbit bringing reinforcements and larger weapons. But the alliance was proving stronger than either side had expected. Human technology combined with Velnari knowledge of the Kethamori was creating opportunities neither could have achieved alone. "The next target has to be the main atmospheric processor," Colonel Martinez said, pointing to a location on the surface map. "If we can destroy it, we can buy time to evacuate the poisoned cities." "It will be heavily defended," warned Kethyara, a Velnari military commander. "The Kethamori always protect their world changers with their strongest fighters." Marcus studied the tactical display. The atmospheric processor was built like a fortress, surrounded by Kethamori defensive positions, but there was something about its placement that seemed familiar. "Zara," he said, "is this location near one of your ancient cave systems? Something that connects to the main tunnel network?" Zara examined the map carefully, her violet eyes tracing the underground passages. "Yes," she said suddenly. "The singing caves. They were sealed long ago because they were too close to the surface, but the tunnels are still there." Colonel Martinez leaned forward. "Could we get a strike team through those caves?" "It would be dangerous," Thisal said. "The caves have been empty for centuries. There might be cave-ins or poisonous gases. But if we could get inside the processor facility," Marcus said, thinking out loud, "we wouldn't have to fight through all their outer defenses." Kethyara nodded slowly. A small team with human explosives and Velnari knowledge of Kethamori technology. It could work. The plan that emerged was risky but possible. A joint team would travel through the abandoned cave system to reach the atmospheric processor from below. While they were infiltrating the facility, combined human and Velnari forces would attack the outer defenses to draw attention away from the infiltration team. Marcus volunteered to lead the infiltration team, and Zara immediately volunteered to go with him. Colonel Martinez tried to object. The mission was too dangerous for civilians, but Thisal supported them. "They know each other's minds," the elder said. "They understand both our peoples. If anyone can succeed at this, it is them." The team that assembled was small but skilled. Besides Marcus and Zara, there were 2 human demolition experts, Sergeant Kim and Private Davis, and two Velnari warriors, Shannara and Velketh. They carried human explosives and Velnari crystal weapons that could disrupt Kethmori technology. The journey through the singing caves took most of a day. The tunnels were beautiful but treacherous, filled with crystal formations that sang in the wind and pools of water that glowed with their own light. In some places, they had to crawl through passages barely wide enough for their bodies. In others, they crossed chasms on bridges of crystal that looked like they might break at any moment. "Why are they called the Singing Caves?" Marcus asked as they rested beside an underground waterfall. "Listen," Zara said. Marcus listened carefully and heard it, a faint melody that seemed to come from the crystals themselves. It was beautiful and sad, like a song of mourning for something lost long ago. "The crystals remember," Zara explained. "They sing the songs of my people who once lived here, before we went deeper underground to hide from the surface world." As they got closer to their target, the air began to smell wrong, chemical and harsh. Nothing like the clean air of the deep caves. The Kethmori atmospheric processor was working overtime, pumping toxins into the planet's atmosphere. They reached the final chamber just as explosions echoed from above. The diversionary attack had begun. Human aircraft and Velnari crystal-powered flying machines were attacking the outer defenses of the processor facility. Marcus checked his equipment one more time. The plan was simple in theory but dangerous in practice. They would plant human explosives at key points in the processor's foundation, while Zara and the Velnari warriors used their crystal weapons to disrupt the control systems. "Remember," Marcus said to the team, "we only get one chance at this. If the Kethmori detect us before we're ready, we'll be trapped down here." They moved carefully through ventilation shafts that led into the base of the atmospheric processor. The facility was huge, filled with alien machinery that hummed and pulsed with malevolent energy. The Kethmori had built it like a living thing, with organic-looking tubes and chambers that reminded Marcus of pictures he had seen of the inside of a body. The Kethmori guards were focused on the battle above, just as they had hoped. Marcus and his team moved through the lower levels of the facility without being detected. They placed charges at structural support points while Zara and the Velnari warriors identified critical control systems. Everything was going according to plan until Private Davis accidentally triggered a motion sensor. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility, and Marcus could hear the sound of Kethmori soldiers running toward their position. "How long do we need?" Zara called out as she worked frantically to disable a control panel. "2 more minutes to set the last charges," Sergeant Kim replied. "We don't have 2 minutes," Marcus said, seeing Kethmori soldiers appearing at the far end of the corridor. The Kethmori were exactly as Zara had described them. Pale, elongated creatures that moved with disturbing grace. Their weapons fired energy beams that left smoking holes in the walls, but they seemed surprised by the resistance they encountered. Velketh and Shannara fought like dancers, their crystal weapons creating barriers of light that deflected the Kethmori energy beams. Marcus had never seen anything like it. The Velnari had learned to fight these creatures over generations, and their techniques were perfectly adapted to counter Kethmori advantages. "Charges set," Sergeant Kim called out. "Control systems disabled." Zara reported, "Everyone out," Marcus shouted. They ran through the facility as explosions began to shake the structure. The atmospheric processor was shutting down, its alien machinery grinding to a halt as the human explosives destroyed its foundation and the Velnari crystal weapons overloaded its control systems. They made it to the cave entrance just as the main explosion occurred. The entire facility collapsed in on itself, sending a pillar of fire and smoke into the poisoned sky. Above them, Marcus could see human and Velnari aircraft retreating from the area as their mission was accomplished. But their success was bigger than just destroying one facility. As they climbed out of the caves, Marcus could see the sky beginning to clear. Without the main atmospheric processor, the poison clouds were starting to dissipate. The planet could heal. More importantly, the alliance between humans and Velnari had proven itself. Working together, they had achieved what neither could have done alone. The success of the mission spread quickly through both communities, replacing fear and mistrust with hope and cooperation. Over the following weeks, the combined forces drove the remaining Kethmori off Kepler 442c. The aliens retreated to their ships and left the system, perhaps deciding that this world was too well defended to be worth the cost of conquest. Marcus stood with Zara on a hilltop overlooking the main human settlement. Below them, construction crews were building new structures, some using human technology, others using Velnari crystal growing techniques. The two peoples were not just allies now. They were becoming something new together. "Do you think the Kethamori will come back?" Zara asked. "Maybe," Marcus said. "But if they do, they'll find both our peoples ready for them. And maybe by then we'll have found other allies too, other species who are tired of being hunted by predators." Zara smiled, her violet eyes bright with hope. "The universe is very big," she said. "There must be many peoples who would choose cooperation over consumption." Marcus nodded, thinking about the future. The accidental meeting between a human and an alien girl had become the foundation for something much larger. Proof that different species could work together, that understanding was stronger than fear, and that even the darkest enemies could be defeated when good people stood together. The stars were coming out overhead, no longer hidden by poison clouds. Somewhere among those stars, other worlds waited, some threatened by creatures like the Kethamori,